Pixar's Elemental is Inside Out meets Zootopia meets Romeo and Juliet, and it delivers on a stellar level to bring Pixar back into its element. Ah, see what I did there, elements? I'm terrible at jokes. But as much as I enjoyed this film for all it's worth, it appears I'm the only one. I know I am late to this review as there are plenty of videos out there, but some of us live in the UK where Pixar still put their films out in the UK weeks later, and I get so annoyed because I want to fucking watch it. It is annoying and I just want to... Sorry about that, back to the review.
Fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
This film did not do well at the box office, and it didn't receive the best reviews either. And while it could be blamed that it was competing with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and the fact that most people don't need to watch the newest Disney or Pixar film anymore, due to it coming on Disney Plus months later. Heck, that's the reason I don't watch many Marvel films in the cinema anymore. But it doesn't stop Elemental from being one of the best Pixar films in my opinion. Pixar even returned to their old ways of showing a short film before their movie with Carl's First Date, and I absolutely love this. It is so nice to watch a little short film before the main feature. Hello, it's me, the Average Critic. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more great content, and let's talk about Elemental and why it's worth your time. Also, a spoiler warning is in effect, so you have been warned. So Elemental's plot is kind of interesting in that it doesn't really have one, but in a good sort of way. To summarize Elemental in one sentence is kind of difficult. Similar to how you can't really explain the plot of The Shawshank Redemption without spoiling really anything, at the forefront of its narrative is a beautiful love story between two characters, Ember and Wade. Firstly, the characters in this film are wonderfully written and wonderfully cast. Characters feel fleshed out with plenty of time to understand them. The cast do an incredible job, especially Leah Lewis as Ember. As someone who hasn't had a huge amount of experience as an actor in general, I thought she did a phenomenal job as this character. What makes the characters work is they all come from somewhere. The film's director, Peter Son, is heavily inspired by his own life, and it very much comes through. Everything feels authentic and grounded to make a much more grounded story about two people falling in love. The animation, of course, is incredible to look at. This is what we've come to expect from a company like Pixar, but the cinematography and lighting in this film create some gorgeous shots on screen. I'm quite simply in awe at the animation on screen. Similar to Inside Out, this film does some wonderful world building, but also with how the world mixes with its characters. Naturally, with these characters being an element, the way they interact with their world is incredibly clever. This is classic Pixar, and it's something we've seen before in films like Inside Out. I do think that the film doesn't have that classic Pixar humor that we are used to. There are moments that make you laugh, but not as many as perhaps it could. But that being said, this film is not made for laughs. This film is really not made for kids at all. It's not heavy on action, comedy, or plot. It's a very closed-off story about characters. Drawing from the director's own inspiration of what it was like to be an immigrant in New York City is something I thought was really nice, and using the elements as a way of telling that story is something I wasn't expecting. I did kind of want more from this aspect of the film, as it is incredibly mature, and there's a great flashback scene where Ember talks about how she and her father were not allowed in a museum simply because they are fire elements. This scene started something very powerful, and I did want it to be just that little bit longer, as it does cut short very quickly. But everything to do with the whole immigrant side of this story is incredibly clever, as even though I am not one myself, I can see all those details of what it's like from the other side, and it was truly moving. There are lots of layers to this film: the immigrant side, the relationship between Ember and her father, the world in general, and of course the relationship between Ember and Wade. And it all works incredibly well to create a meaningful story. There are no weak points to this film in terms of its narrative. There are a few moments of dialogue that can feel a little bit mushy, but while we have seen love stories and things like racial issues in animations before, it's never been at the forefront like it is in this movie. Looking at the reviews, people compared this film saying how love and romance in animation is something we are used to, and while that statement is definitely true, it's never been the point of the movie. Films like Hercules, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Cinderella all have a love story in them, but they are subplots at best. Hercules is about learning to be a true hero, Aladdin is about being true to one's own self, Beauty and the Beast is about the beauty of your own inside and being kind to people, and Cinderella is about loving yourself despite others telling you you are not worth anything. Whereas this film, the relationship is at the core, and that's the whole point of the movie. As I mentioned before, this film's plot isn't really anything. Events happen with Wade and Ember trying to fix the leak in the city, etc., but that's not the point of the movie. The movie is about characters who can't be together or testing if they should, mixing that in with not just the physical element side of how could fire and water mix, but of course two characters who come from different working class backgrounds of families, religion, and prejudice. One of my favourite parts of the movie is as much as we do see that fire elements are given such prejudice and racism towards them, understandably, we see the same retaliation from Ember's father, being that he is also prejudiced towards water. I really love this aspect as it allows both sides to be supported. You sympathise with fire, but you also sympathise with the water. And of course we get an incredible score from Thomas Newman, and it hits incredibly well. I mean, it's Thomas Newman. The guy has done some of my favourite scores ever. He's amazing. There is even some original songs sung by Lauv. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't listen to modern music, guys, so I'm sorry. But this song is really nice, and it has been added to my Spotify playlist. But the whole score brings everything together in a nice, neat bow to show that this film has some beauty and meaning behind it, which brings me to my next point. Why has this film sadly failed? It did not do well at the box office, and looking on the internet, not a lot of people liked it either, apart from a select few. So why did I love it? Maybe it's the old romantic in me, maybe it's because I'm suddenly in one of the best relationships of my life after having my heart broken. I just needed this story. But doubtless of all that, it's the characters. The characters all feel well written and are shaped really well. Ember and Wade have a wonderful connection about being together in this world. It isn't just a nice dynamic, but it's heightened because of the world they live in. The beauty of them sharing what they both can do and seeing the beauty in that, the way the characters look at each other is something for anyone to fall in love with. I do think Disney's marketing department needs to seriously up their game. Competing against films like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is not going to go down well. And also just being linked to Disney in general. Pixar, despite being owned by Disney, is still its own company. This film, even though I loved it, there are a lot of scenes that feel cut massively, and I can feel Disney telling them to cut the movie because Disney are used to making films for children, whereas Pixar, as we all know, they give us some of the most mature films made for adults. If you look back in the history of Pixar, they have had disagreements on their productions with Disney in the past, and since being bought by Disney in 2006, you can really feel Disney pulling on the strings at Pixar, which is really sad. I don't know what the future holds for Pixar, but it definitely feels like Disney is pulling those strings really hard on them. Similar to what I said in my Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse video, that film was a long animated film and proves that animation isn't just for kids. Films are becoming much longer these days, and it's okay to have a longer film as long as it serves the story in a positive way. Whereas this film isn't as good as Inside Out, WALL-E, or even Up, and it does have some flaws, I think it's one of the best films they have produced since Soul. The film has such depth, meaning, and care, and while it has flaws, it didn't stop me from loving every second of this film. So after all that, it gets my professional rating of 8 out of 10. And it gets my personal rating of 9 out of 10. If you can please go see it, I would highly recommend it. Even though Pixar are owned by Disney, Pixar are struggling at the moment, and I would hate to see them go down just because they are hindered by a company that doesn't fully support them. So thank you for joining me in this video. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of Elemental. Did this film speak to you like it did with me, or did it disappoint and really let you down? Let's keep the talk going down in the comment section. If you enjoyed it, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more great content on all your favorite animated movies, and follow me on all my social media platforms as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.